about the plight of poor, unfairly treated people in forgotten parts of this country. In her voice was shared the joys, the sadness, the pain, and the faith of a people. Through the power of her artistry, her voice became universal for all people. Now, you felt that in her music. It was lyrical, it was sweet, it was earthy, it was sensual, it was righteous, and it was powerful. She moved us in ways that no artist ever had, before or since. Aretha Franklin commanded respect. She deservedly received it, and she also made it possible for others. Now, hers was a consequential life beyond the impact that she had as a great singer, and that should never, ever be forgotten. In ways not known to many, she was a part of the movement that set this nation free. And she made one song in particular her own, and it became one of the anthems for another movement that made women more equal. In short, her status as a queen, unlike others who inherit a title, her title was earned. Now, it has been said that hers was a once-in-a-lifetime voice. That is simply not true. Her gift was almost otherworldly. There has never been, there will never be another voice melded to the consummate artistry that was Ms. Aretha Franklin. We should all count ourselves fortunate that we lived at a time when God deigned to share one of his true and unique gifts with us. Those who came before us and those who will come after us will not have the same privilege that we all have had. She made our lives richer, and she made our lives better. She made this country both more sensitive and more just. Aretha Franklin made the world more beautiful and more understandable. She comforted us, she moved us, and she inspired us. God sang through her. Now, I know that she is in a better place and is surrounded now by so many that she missed for far too long. Our days will be a little less bright and our lives just a bit empty. That is the impact that this wonderful woman had on all of us. We must now find joy in her continuing ability through her recordings, her videos, to connect with one another, especially with those that we love, with her music and the unique way in which she describes so much of what we all experience. Now, I'm going to end by paraphrasing words from what is probably my favorite Aretha Franklin song. Though she won't call anymore, and we'll sit and wait in vain, our love is true, and it's all for you, Aretha Franklin. Rest in peace, my queen.
All right, we just watched the former Attorney General Eric Holder there, Senator Debbie Stabenow speaking there. What a day this is in America. I'm Brooke Baldwin. We're just going to take you through it all for the next 2 hours. This nation today honoring, remembering, celebrating the lives of two American legends in ceremonies powerful and beautiful in their own right. Of course, you have the late Senator John McCain. He is lying in state there. Members of the public having just the precious opportunity to bid their own farewell to such a legend and a hero in this country. A moment of bipartisan reverence and a salute to his 60 years of service to this country. But Aretha Franklin, Miss Franklin, a celebration of life fit for a queen in her hometown of Detroit, Michigan. Musical tributes from stars like Ariana Grande, Faith Hill, and the legendary Clark sisters, and poignant reflections from Franklin's family and music legend Smokey Robinson. I promise you I won't talk through this whole thing. I know you want to listen to so much of this, but let's start with Miss Franklin's funeral there in Detroit, where Fred Whitfield is standing by, Ryan Young is there, Michaela Angela Davis is here with me in New York. But Frederica, let me begin with you. I mean, I've been watching you off and on all morning long, and I think when I really looked up, it was the Clark sisters performing, everyone on their feet. I mean, this is a total celebration where you are in Detroit.
It is. It's a celebration. It is a happy moment. You know, and I think the former Attorney General put it so succinctly, where he talked about you know, there is happiness in this celebration. Yes, there is sadness because the Queen of Soul, you know, is gone, but she lives forever through her music. And I think he did such a beautiful job of really putting you on the journey of how she has touched lives in so many ways through her music, and how she embodied, you know, her music, how you felt her music, and you heard from her grandchildren there, and you heard from her niece as well, and her grandchildren spoke so eloquently of not knowing how great she was. Yeah, she was great, she was my grandmother, but then following her death, to hear people talk about these beautiful stories of how she's touched them and what her music has meant. Hearing from little Victoria, who talked about, you know, I knew how special she was, but I didn't know how great. Her voice, she made you feel something, every emotion. Her voice brought peace. And I think that says it so beautifully. And you've heard from people who've known her well, from Smokey Robinson. He had this beautiful, very spontaneous, it seemed, you know, song, almost like a letter that he was singing to her as he looked at that 24-karat gold-plated casket with Aretha Franklin there. And he talked about how he's going to miss his friend. He told a beautiful story about how he was 8 years old and going over to C.L. Franklin's home, the pastor of New Bethel Church, the father of Aretha Franklin, and how he walked into this house and he heard this music and heard this little voice, only to open the door and find out this was a 4-year-old Aretha Franklin, who sounded like a woman who was singing, and how their relationship would blossom over the years. They would sing together, they would collaborate. I mean, we're hearing stories like that, very personal. And then, of course, you hear from people outside who feel like they knew Aretha Franklin because they followed her music for 6 decades now. She represents the heart of Detroit, and we've heard that many times over from so many people today, Brooke. And of course, we're going to hear from the former president, Bill Clinton. He's been a great admirer of her for so long. It's why he reached out to Aretha Franklin to be part of his inaugural celebrations. And we look forward to hearing what he has to say.
We think we're moments away. Fred, thank you so much. Stand by for me. You see there over the senator's right shoulder, the former President Bill Clinton. We also know letters have been written and passed on or being read aloud from both former President George W. Bush and from former President Barack Obama. But stand by for the former president there. But let's just dip in real quickly to Senator Stabenow.
We've lost a legend. Yet we can take comfort in the fact that Aretha's voice will always, always be with us in so many different ways. Aretha Franklin was the undisputed queen of soul, and this city is and will always be her kingdom. God bless each and every one of you in the Franklin family.
Please, everyone, stand to your feet. Shirley Chisholm made a run for the presidency in the 1970s, and in 1984 and 88, Reverend Jesse ran, and we dubbed his theme, Run, Jesse, Run. Al Sharpton gave it a shot, and we didn't see Barack Obama coming. We declared that it would never happen. So in 1992, someone from Hope, Arkansas, became president of the United States. And we just dubbed him at that time the first black president of the United States. Please receive the Honorable William Jefferson, Bill Clinton. Give God praise for Lady Hillary Clinton here as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop. Reverend Smith, Mrs. Ellis, members of Aretha's family, for giving Hillary and me a chance to show up and just say we started out not as the president, the first lady, the senator, the secretary of state, we started out as like Aretha groupies or something. I mean, you know, she was only about 4 years older than me, 5 years older than Hillary. So when we were getting out of college was when she finally got her big breakthroughs. It's one thing I want to say to all the young people in the audience. Yeah, she had the voice of a generation, maybe the voice of a century. Yes, she was born into a musical culture. Yes, she sat on the steps in her home and listened to Art Tatum, maybe the greatest jazz pianist who ever lived, play. But she also worked for years, I mean years, springing out of the church and the gospel music to the R&B clubs, the jazz clubs, the places where soul was being born, the places where rock and roll was being played. When nobody was paying particular attention. I went back and reread her autobiography the other day, and I said, oh my God, when she was making her way, she actually opened a jazz club for John Coltrane, and he did a set after her. Why am I saying this? This woman got us all here in these seats today. Right? Not because she had this breathtaking talent, which she did. Not because she grew up, as Attorney General Holder said, at least a princess of soul because of her father, her mother, her relatives. But because she lived with courage, not without fear, but overcoming her fears. She lived with faith, not without failure, but overcoming her failures. She lived with power, not without weakness, but overcoming her weaknesses. I just loved her. So I started off as a groupie. And then I said, oh my God, this woman who has sung for America when Dr. King was killed. You know, all these political conventions, including mine, at least President Obama and my inauguration ceremonies and various things. And I even talked her into coming to the Rose Garden to sing for the Emperor and Empress of Japan. Thought it might loosen them up a little, you know, it'd be good. Okay, so I figured out, I think, that the secret of her greatness was she took this massive talent and this perfect culture that raised her and decided to be the composer of her own life song. What a song it turned out to be. I want to say, I hope God will forgive me. But I was so glad when I got here, and I hope you will forgive me, when the casket was still open, because I said, I wonder what my friends got on today. I said, I want to see what the girl is carrying out. One last thing. For all the wonderful things Aretha did for me, all the great events she appeared at, my most enduring memory of her was almost happenstance, for I was there at what turned out to be the last public singing she ever did. At Elton John's AIDS benefit last year, in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in Harlem, just a couple of blocks from my office. So Elton John and I had done a lot of work together for a long time on AIDS, and he asked me to come. I showed up, and I said, well, you know, and he said, Aretha's the talent, so I showed up a little early. And I was like a grade school kid. Here I am, you know, old gray-haired guy. So sure enough, she heard I was there, and she summoned me back. And she's sitting there, I mean, obviously desperately ill, gone. She stood right up and said, how you doing, baby? I said, well, I'm doing better now. And she said, well, look at me. I finally got thin again. It took a lot of guts to say that. And then she went out into this setting. And all these people who loved her and were awestruck and said, can you believe she showed up? And she sang not one song, not two songs, not three songs. She had to bring a chair out, and she sang for 45 straight minutes. That's what I want to say to the young people here. The people who may not even know the names of the people who were influences on her. I went back and was literally awestruck reading her autobiography and how generous she was to call the names of dozens of gospel singers and musicians, of artists, of soul singers that most people don't know. And to say they're underappreciated. She kept filling out her life. But I'll never forget her. She stood up singing in that cathedral when she could. She sat down when she got tired. She even went over and played one song on the piano just to make sure none of us forgot that she was real good at that. So, our friends, our family member, our mother, our grandmother, our aunt, or whoever, she did as she dominated our ups and downs and joys and heartbreaks when we started off listening to her first on the radio. I'd end up buying the records. Then you got tapes. You had to have a tape deck. The CDs, then you had to have a CD player. Now all you need to do is carry all these little phones around. If you're as ancient as I am, it seems incredible, all the music in the world right here. But she did this great thing, knowing she could not live long. And she even told the audience that that day she had gotten a good medical report. I have no idea if it's true or not, because it was after I left her. But I know one thing, she wanted them to sit back, relax, feel good, and listen to her sing and not worry about how long she was going to live. Now, we're living in a time where a lot of the virtues I just described to you are not very much in fashion. She cared about broken people. She cared about people who were disappointed. She cared about people who didn't quite succeed as much as she did. She wrote about them all in her book. And I can tell you, I've had an editor. Her editor was eating on her. Aretha, leave these people's names out. Nobody knows who they are. I do. And if they don't know who they are, they should have. So, this is what I think. You should remember in this time about this magnificent woman. She worked her can off to get where she was. She took the gifts God gave her and she kept getting a little bigger every day. So, it's the best I can do. It's the key to freedom. God bless you, Aretha. We love you.
The one and only president, the president of the United States, President William Jefferson Clinton. At this time, Audrey DuBois Harris is going to bring us one of the hymns of the church. And following that, we're going to go to church with Pastor Shirley Caesar and Tasha Cobb and the Aretha Franklin Concert Choir. Let's receive them this time.
I promise you, we will not interrupt. We should listen to this. We're going to come back when we see Shirley Caesar and Shaka Khan take to the microphone, promise. But for now, I get to sit next to Michaela Angela Davis, who was with me as we were sitting listening to President Clinton and the sort of mic drop at the end of that, and hearing a little bit of Aretha on his iPhone, and you know, how he said, you know, started out as kind of a groupie, and then tells the story of how he had Aretha Franklin over at the Rose Garden, you know, when he had the Emperor and Empress of Japan to sort of maybe loosen them up. But it was when he said, "She has sung for America."
Yes.
And you turned to me and you said, you know what, as we're mindful of course of both this service and that in Washington of the late Senator John McCain, these are two patriots.
Yes. Yeah, and I think today was two portraits in patriotism and showing the world how America dignifies their patriots and the difference between being a cultural patriot and a military or political one. But it really was the tale of two big, giant lives. And it's stunning to watch them at the same time. And it's making us have a very interesting, complex conversation, which is the American conversation. What's striking about Aretha Franklin's rituals and ceremony is that she really embodied faith and works in a very particular way, and that she made you feel good, like Dr. Feel Good, but took you to church, but also took you to reckon with civil rights. It's very, very powerful to stay in church, but also stay in the streets.
You know, I was listening to an interview she did with Dawn in the last couple of years, and she was talking about the civil rights movement. She was talking about how respect was a mantra for the civil rights movement, but that, and she went on the mini tour with Dr. King, church to church to church. You know, she rode the bus, she didn't fly. She rode the bus, and how, though, when he was asking her, you know, you really were at the forefront of the civil rights movement, she sort of shied away from saying, yes, I carried the mantle.
Yeah, but you know, also, Brooke, with your work, she's a great American woman. She's the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And respect was a feminist mantra, too.
Yes.
I mean, she wanted her propers when she got home.
Yes, she did.
That was really progressive, because no woman was talking about being satisfied sexually. No one was talking about being in charge and bossed up at that time. And you have the feeling that Aretha Franklin was in charge of Aretha Franklin's life. And that is at the core of feminism.
Where do you think she got that from?
You know, a combination. I think President Clinton really laid that out, the idea that